years and concluded that aerobic exercise does not provide a significant advantage over dieting alone. Again, the hierarchy, nutrition, nutrition, then we start working on other stuff. Rest periods during training, very, very, very important. If you do not get rest periods in your training, you have now just become aerobic. And now you're going to start to have some of those other problems. So you see a lot of these, you know, classes at the gym and stuff like that, they don't have any rest breaks. Guess what? They're aerobic. They're not burning fat. They think they are. They might be losing weight, again, just like marathoners, but that does not mean that they're getting leaner, that they're getting less body fat. Chronic overtraining training can also lower the resting heart rate and make you think you are actually getting a training benefit, and you're not. So something to be aware of. So this is on a larger scale of rest. If you can train hard more than 4 days in an 8-week period, chances are you're not training hard in the first place. 4 days is generally what I found in all the programs I've studied over the last couple of years. Almost consistently, every single one has 4 days of hard work or moderate to hard work. So how do you know if you're overtraining? If your heart rate immediately spikes in your warm-up and you're not on birth control, or if you have nagging injuries like maybe it starts in your shoulder, and then it's in your hip, and then it's in your knee, and then it's in your ankle, it just kind of goes all over the place, and you're just constantly having these little minor injuries, chances are you're overtraining. So why doesn't aerobics work? Basically, their thought process is that on a biological hardwired level, when you start getting into that aerobic base, your body starts craving food. It's basically what that research is getting down to. All right, who's heard this one? The more calories you burn during training, the more fat you will lose. So during training, burning calories, not just our RMR, but our actual just training period. So we see aerobics isn't so good. Let's see what burning calories does. Easiest way to burn 800 calories in 30 minutes. All right, so 20 weeks endurance training versus 15 weeks of interval training. The energy cost of the endurance training was $28,661. The interval training was less than half, so during the session, they burned less than half in the endurance, or in the interval. The interval training group showed 9 times greater loss in subcutaneous fat than the endurance group when corrected for energy cost. So basically they found out, hey, what does each calorie worth compared to 13,028. They did a little calculation to figure out exactly what that is. So kind of what this is known as is the afterburn effect. This is what happens is this can burn up to 38 hours afterwards. They only know it's 38 because they quit studying. They're like, you know what, it's 38 hours, we're just going to stop, keep track. So a good effective program can have afterburn effect for several days afterwards. With cardio, aerobics, things like that, as soon as your heart rate comes down, as soon as you stop sweating, you stop burning calories. It does not have an afterburn effect. Even aerobics is not good at improving aerobics. 15 weeks of 20 minutes per session interval training 3 times a week versus 15 weeks of 40 minutes steady state exercise 3 times per week. Both groups burn the same total calories. So now in the session, we're still burning the same total calories. Over the 15 weeks, they ate the same diet. So nutrition completely out of the picture. Steady state group gained on average 1 pound of fat. The interval group lost 5.5 pounds of fat and increased lean mass. The interval group also increased aerobic capacity more than the steady state group. So the interval group actually had better aerobic benefits than the aerobic group. Here they are, you can get worse. Some of you guys have done this before. This is called the Tabata protocol. That's that first one up there. The interval group did, or the endurance group did 30 minutes. So in 4 minutes of work, they got the same aerobic benefit, and actually a little bit higher, plus the localized muscle endurance went from 40 to 207%, depending on the muscle group. They got localized muscle endurance over the aerobic group. In 4 minutes a day versus 30. Aerobics even makes you fatter. Group 1, interval training. Group 2, steady state. Both groups train 3 times a week, burn 300 calories per session for 8 weeks. The interval group showed a negative 4.4% change in body fat, whereas the low intensity steady state group exhibited a 1.2% change in body fat. not so much fun. So why has aerobics worked for bodybuilders? We kind of talked about that earlier. Other athletes. So again, looking at the marathoner and the sprint. The sprinter is very short. He never goes aerobic. He's going for 10, maybe 20 seconds, maybe a minute and a half. He's not going into that aerobic zone. The marathoner, on the other hand, you can see, yes, he's small, but is there much muscle mass there? There's not. So he's not going to have a very high metabolic rate. On the flip side, you could have a football lineman or a power lifter, and they actually need more body fat. That actually improves their sport performance. So something to keep in mind there too, especially for you guys training. High metabolism, even while sleeping. Effects of exercise intensity on 24-hour energy expenditure and substrate oxidation. So basically we want interval-based training. We'll get in that here in a little bit more. To top it off, bodyweight cardio such as running is going to burn less and less calories as you get lighter because now you have less load. So now you're lowering your load, lowering your intensity, you're actually going to burn less and less calories. Same thing with like push-ups. Things that are bodyweight based cardio or anything that's longer duration than a couple minutes is actually going to burn less and less calories as you get lighter. So as you start losing fat, you're actually going to get a little bit less calorie burn during the session. So again, we want that the afterburn effect. Now, as you can see here, 4 minutes off. That's a long time to get off, which means that it had to be a very high intensity. So the key with intervals is that they have to be very, very intense. It has to be life or death type intervals. It has to be a very good sprint. Resistance training. So this is the key. Is getting resistance training in there. Overweight subjects were assigned 3 groups: diet only, diet plus aerobics plus weights. Aerobic group lost only 1 more pound than the diet group. The weight training group lost 21.1, so 44% and 35% more than the diet and aerobic only groups respectively. So in 12 weeks of training, just doing aerobics, you only lost 1 extra pound versus much, much more with resistance. All right, so you guys have probably heard, you can go into starvation mode. You guys have heard that before? All right, kind of. There's a certain area, everybody's gonna be individual, between 5 and 20 pounds that our ancient caveman had to have as a backup. You know what, just in case, I'm gonna have this around. But anything over that was not gonna help him live longer. That did not make it to the DNA. So anything over, say that 5 to 20 pounds, he's not going to maintain, just because that's not going to make him more survivable in that environment. But being super lean also is going to put him at risk. So kind of. Now the key with this one, you see they both had an 800 calorie liquid diet. That is very, very low. So not very many calories. But check it out. The aerobic group did have an increase in lean body mass, and they had a lowering of metabolism, versus the resistance group had both. They had metabolism go up, and they had fat loss go up. So aerobics plus low calorie diet equals less fat loss and lower metabolism. So this is kind of where we got the whole, like, hey, if you go on a low calorie diet, chances of you going into starvation mode and actually not losing fat, that's where that comes from. Added resistance training, now you have more fat loss and higher metabolism. So it's a complete opposite. Resistance training is the key. So program must have resistance training. Explosive training. Explosive group burned 13% more calories during training and 7% more in the post-exercise period. So we gotta have power exercises. It doesn't have to be anything super extreme. So let's say you've got a 67-year-old female, doesn't move very well, doesn't have to be a power slam or anything like that. Doesn't have to be Olympic lifts. Power is just trying to move something fast. So maybe it's something as simple as doing a med ball slam, which is much, much easier. Just pick it up, slam it down. So finding something that is still a power exercise and get that in there, it's going to burn more calories during your session. So we're always trying to get even more calories burned if we can. Again, we want the afterburn, but if we can burn them during the session, why not? So what is explosive? Fast as possible with total control, not sloppy reps. Normal rep might be control the negative and explode up. So typically, I like explosion up, 2 to 4 seconds down, kind of depending on the individual. So It's not how fast it actually moves, it's the intent to move fast. Offset loading is another thing that we're going to bring up. So if I'm carrying my groceries home, like this, if I were to do that in the gym, everybody would be like, oh God, you can't do that. Your spine's going to tweak if you go like this. Well, guess what? If I got to pick up my keys and I got the groceries, down I go. So offset loading is going to be a very life-applicable type of exercise. Basically, that just means one side is loaded more than the other. Supersets. Supersets are huge. Supersets burn more calories during and after exercise for the exact same amount of work. So now we're starting to get into that density again. The more density